Your hair looks good.
Well, thank you. I even got the line thing in here, and I had it grown out longer, but I cut it short. It was a mistake.
No,
I should have consulted you.
Of course.
You
I'm
know?
everybody's gay, straight hair product person. Cut person.
Well, hey, what's going on, everyone? How's it going?
Oh, boy. We started hard.
Man, it's been almost a year since I recorded a show.
And I don't know when the last time we were on a show together.
Oh, dude, that's been a while.
We should start a podcast.
No, they weren't into it when we did it then anyways.
Right.
But hey, all. So tonight, myself and Jeff are going to be talking about Jiu Jitsu and kind of like the beginner's guide, navigating the challenges and triumphs. So I started Jiu Jitsu 2 months ago. And so kind of going to be talking about the things that I've been experiencing, the things that I've been working through. It's more so the mentality of it and the progress and the path, especially mentally. And then the cool thing is actually, Jeff, you got your black belt last year. I want to say at the end, near the end of last year.
Yeah, December.
Yeah, congrats, by the way. That's
Thank
awesome.
You.
And so we kind of have two polar opposites in regards to the jiu-jitsu journey. I mean, and life, and likes and women. Really, really different.
Well, the day that I chose to be gay, I knew I was going to go the alternate route in life. and we adopted a cat. Actually, we didn't. I bought the thing because I'm deathly allergic, and he's hypoallergenic. I'd turn and show you where he is, but he's watching bumblebees. And if you want to see how cute my cat is, then
by the way, know what we need to do is just start a GoFundMe for you to adopt an elephant. We need to make that happen.
Finally, somebody is bringing up the real issues. Let's just not even talk about
this. This is why our podcast
doesn't have any. Well, no, we should just do a podcast so we can catch up.
Yeah.
Shit, I haven't spoken to you in forever.
But you also are aware we couldn't air that podcast.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. So yeah.
Anyway, so let's talk jiu-jitsu. At least we are still consistent with the beginnings of shows back then and now. We are consistent as fuck. So started 2 months ago. I'm with Stronghold Gym. I can't remember the lineage. I'm not all into the lineage, but like I texted Cecil. I was like, hey man, the instructor here at this gym, he got his under this guy, then that guy got under this guy, what's up? And he was like, well, the instructor you got that your instructor, he got his black belt from a dude that apparently just smashed Cecil's guy that he works with. I can't remember his name. Yeah. So he's like, yeah, dude, super legit. I was like, cool. Now that's kind of a small discussion point of like, here's the thing too. Even if it wasn't like this super legit thing, I would still go anyways. Like, even if it was a blue belt teaching, like, am I still learning more than where I started? Yes. It might not be the perfect setup or the perfect whatever, but it's at least starting. Now, thankfully, I've got, it's a great gym. It's, it's got all the lineage because, for some people, it's very important, and that's not wrong.
Well, and also, you want to know where you came from, and it's less about, well, for me at least, like who is the bestest of all of the grandfathers of jiu-jitsu. It's more just kind of knowing where you came from and knowing that there's a history and that people before your coach or whatnot, a teacher, that they put the work in, and it's not just some, I threw up a tent and it shows you that I have a lot of points to make about that. I'm going to let you talk for a little while and then I'll interrupt you more.
I don't have any more on it. I'm in a good gym. It's got the lineage. even if it wasn't, I'd still be going because, hey, some jujitsu is better than nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think
and there's always like it's not like, we're not going to Kenny's jiu-jitsu special and chicken stand, right? Like it's not like that level.
Well, I think it's also I mean, I've gotten pointers and tips and from all varying belt levels. In fact, including from people that were a lower quote unquote belt than me. But you just want to know that you're paying the right amount of money because jiu-jitsu is expensive. So like if one of us substitute teaches for Brett at the academy or at Brett's gym, Daniel Gracie Delco, there's like a different price structure for what I mean, shit, we do it for free, but I think it's smart to pay people, now that he's moving into a brick and mortar, like an established place now. But, a purple belt gets this amount of money to teach a class, a brown belt this, a black belt this. And actually, when I first heard that, I was like, you know what? That's actually kind of smart, because people will do stuff for free because they love, like, we love Brett. I fucking love Brett. You know what I mean? And his wife and his daughter, everybody, this whole family, they're just wonderful people. But at a certain point, asking people for favors, people don't want to do favors anymore. So I just thought that was so smart because I actually told him, like, dude, you don't have to like pay me. And he's like, no, I want to. So it was an interesting kind of looking through maybe going into a smarter business owner lens than just like, hey, we all love jiu-jitsu, we should all do it,
Yeah. And then, by the way, did you listen to the voicemail I left you last night?
I don't listen to your fucking voicemails.
Wow. Well, I don't care about your hair anymore. So, by the way, I'm at Stronghold Gym outside of Madison. So if anyone wants to show up, come on, join. So we have a new guy that showed up last night. And go through the class, you shake everyone's hand as you go through the little line thing. And then I'm like walking away. And he was like, hey, are you Nick from Practically Tactical? And I was like, I turned around and I was like, shut your fucking mouth. Like I don't talk about gun stuff, training stuff at all at jiu-jitsu, at all. And I was like, hey, yeah, whatever, but I was like, seriously, I don't talk about that here at all. But then he asked about you and Jesse, how you guys were doing. So
that's pretty.
So cool. He might watch this.
Okay. Well, hello, new guy.
I don't know his name. I don't remember it. So anyways, back to my first point here. So again, talking about from my experiences starting out here again, 2 months in, I should also mention too, because there's like varying degrees of like starting. So as long as I'm not traveling, which is a lot, I do Mondays. I do an hour of no gi and then an hour and a half of gi. Wednesdays is just a hour and a half of gi. Fridays is hour of no gi and then an hour and a half of gi. I'll talk more about that later here. So I've been getting in about, I think it's 5.5 hours a week, something like that or something. When I'm not traveling, because usually sometimes I miss Fridays because obviously, I've been to Alliance like 5 times this year alone. So plus months.
Well, also, isn't it a little bit of a drive from your house? Are you trying to maximize when you go, how much you get on that?
Yeah. It's a 45-minute drive each way.
Right. So I think that's sometimes, I don't know, once you're of a certain age, you kind of, your body doesn't recover as quickly as it used to, which I know you want to talk about a little bit too.
Yeah.
But, like I know people that are, I'm 41. I know I don't look it, but people will be like, man, I'm just like, my knees really hurt. And I'm like, well, how much are you training? And they're like, well, they're still doing doubles. I'm like, not everybody's Paul Sharp, or Larry or something.
And I actually have of what you're talking about. I have something to talk about too. So save that.
Oh, okay.
Put it in your thing.
I don't have one of those. I don't have mine.
We'll check on Amazon.
Okay.
Also, I should actually mention too that my youngest son does it with me too, and my oldest daughter will be starting to once school ends. Because my youngest son did wrestling, I want to continue that because him doing wrestling has been an amazing thing. So he does jiu-jitsu too. So I'm usually there for like 5.5 hours a day when we go down there. So it's a long day, but it's worth it. So, but one of the first thing again that I've been experiencing that, and again, there's also a mentality of this of like I'm treating this so serious, like same thing I do. When I'm down in Alliance, I'm taking some form of CQB class. I'm teaching a CQB class at Alliance, teaching whatever class. Like especially when you've learned something to extremely high level, you treat when you're learning something new an extremely high level as well, because it's like no, being bad at something and being okay with it is just not like it. That's what motivates me, being bad at something, because I get pissed at myself. But one of the biggest things I've had to deal with is understanding the highs and the lows in regarding to the mentality aspect of this. So what do I mean by highs and lows? Is like one of the highs would be this was in like no-gi. I don't know, like a month ago or so, we were working on a takedown defense of a double leg, and we call it the stone wall. Again, man, it'd be great if jiu-jitsu people picked one name for something.
Well, that's
Dude.
That's why John Donaher uses the Japanese words,
Yeah.
which I think is really actually pretty cool. He's trying to like standardize the fucking language. But anyway.
Yeah. Everybody was like, I'll be like, hey, they'll be like this move, but it's also called this. You hear it like this, you hear it like this. It's like, and I'm already terrible with names as it is.
Right.
Which I'll talk about that here in a bit too when we talk about notes. But so anyways, then we go to rolling and no-gi, and I actually executed something we practiced in class. And it worked. And that was like a super high note for me. Like I literally called like Cecil after class. I called like Jesse. I called Tim. Like it was a super high for me of like, hey, I learned this new thing and I executed it rolling against a person that's trying to beat me. Like super high for me. But there's also these lows that come with this of like, man, I remember going to some classes where like last Friday, for example, we were working, maybe it was Monday. Like we're on our back and we're doing like these single X takedowns, or I'd have to go back in my notes here. But we're working the single leg X thing. And dude, it's like, it's not working. I can't execute it. I can't get into the position. Like it's just not going good at all. And, you get really frustrated with it. And then, you're drilling it. You can't do it. And it's rough because you obviously want to do it. You want to do it well. It's an important aspect of this. And, learning to kind of ride those because, again, in some classes, you're like, man, I just wasted like 2.5 hours of my life today. I can't remember anything that we learned. I can't execute it. And it feels of like, it feels bad because it's like, what am I doing? But then you also got the opposites of these highs of like, yes, that was it. I'm picking it up. But that's also, I think, something not to lose of this is that's part of the learning process in this. Going back to like firearms training, so many people are worried about failures or mistakes of like, I have to have this certain look, especially if you're social media, firearms of I do everything perfect. I'm this and that. And it's like, it never happens fucking ever. But that's been something that you just didn't expect going in early. I'm sorry. I didn't expect going in of being of like the highs of the highs and there's lows of the lows. Most of the time you're somewhere in between, but man, those lows suck of like, am I stupid? You just leave the class of like, why am I doing this? I'm the worst person ever at this. And that was something I didn't expect and that comes emotionally with it too. Of, you're spending money, you're spending time, you're competing against other people. The emotional highs and lows was not something that I really expected starting out. But I'd be curious of your thoughts and something too of you obviously have, obviously a lot more experience, but being a black belt now, I'm sure this is something, these feelings that I'm feeling, do they ever stop? Is it something that all the way, even now you're still experiencing, or do you remember any times like that and of like, hey man, eventually like it clicks, I'd be curious of your thoughts of going through that, and if it ends, and kind of how you feel about all that.
Well, there's a lot there. There's a lot there that you're talking about. I mean, and first and foremost, I guess I'd want to just talk about like the um where we are in life. Like we're older, we have less brain plasticity than we did when we were 17 years old, so it's harder. The older you get, the harder it is to learn new things, which is always why I'm so like, I love either teaching people firearm stuff or jujitsu, self-protection when they're older. And when they're like clicking and doing well, I'm like, okay, I sounds like an egotistical thing to say, but I know that I'm teaching well. You know what I mean? They're getting it well, which is like amazing. But I know, like, okay, I've connected with the student, and that's like one of from teaching. That's like one of the greatest fucking highs you'll ever have in your life. It's like anyway. So you have less brain plasticity, and also as we get older, I still don't play games. And growing up, even I like my buddy Kenny and we would sit in his mother's basement, and he would always have like the new game system. There's a point to the story, hopefully. And he would get the new game system. He'd have Sega CD, and then he would have Nintendo 64, and then he would have blah blah blah. And I would just watch. The only ones that I ever played were the ones where you're shooting things, and some of the martial art ones. But I would just watch, and like one of the things that carried on as I got older, because also I didn't want to I don't want to play fucking a board game. People are like, what? You're such a curmudgeon. Like, what's wrong with you? And I'd be like, because if I'm not going to take something like you're talking about really seriously, then I don't even want to fucking try. I'd rather watch you guys have fun, and I'm totally fine with that. But unless I'm going to dedicate the time, then I don't even, like, people are like, oh, why don't you come golfing? I'm like, well, first of all, I believe what Gary says, which is a golf range is just a perfectly good waste of a shooting range.
Exactly.
I love telling people that at the hospital. They're like, but so yeah, I mean, like, the older we get, the harder it is, one, to learn things, oftentimes, with especially physical in nature. But also we kind of have a built-in ego, whether we like it or not, or are cognizant of it or not. And we're like, oh my God, I'm 41 and I'm starting something at 41 years old, and I suck at it. Which is like it cracks your ego in half. And you hear people talk about jiu-jitsu or whatever it is, but specifically jiu-jitsu, I think, is a really good it's analogous to what we're talking about with this show. And yeah, and then the other things are, I think that when you advance, trying to go through the different points you made, like going up the belts, I think, and the more experience you have on the mat, it starts to become those, what did you call them? Like failure moments, or you didn't call them failure moments, like times when you're sucking, or what?
Dude, I can't remember what I said.
Yeah, neither can I. So, but it's like the times that you're the triumphs versus the tribulations,
challenges.
Thank you. Like you happen to have more triumphs, and you maintain your posture better, and you hold the position better, and you hit the sweeps more consistently, and have fewer over time, if there's growth of the I didn't do anything right. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is, sometimes you just have like shitty days. You're just not present, which is one of the reasons why I love jiu-jitsu so much, because as you can tell, I have a racy fucking brain. But it forces you to be present. Shooting forces you to be present. And when you are not, you miss what you're aiming at. When you are not present in jiu-jitsu, you go from a position of, let's say, neutrality to a position of disadvantage, or you go from a position of advantage to you get rolled over, and you're like now in a shitty position, a position of disadvantage. So like being present is such a big thing. And I feel, though, that with something like shooting, with something like jiu-jitsu, we're kind of developing a muscle, of how to be present. Like, I can't be thinking about my fucking taxes while I'm rolling because the blue belt's going to choke me out. You know what I mean? Like,
bro. If you're starting out in this game and you were thinking about taxes,
you're fucked.
I don't know about you. When I'm rolling, I don't even know what I'm thinking right now, and most of it's like I'm trying not to die.
Right.
Especially too, like, okay, if you are 22 years old and you're in college and you do gymnastics, like you should not be allowed to do jiu-jitsu. Like it's unfair. Like,
right.
Avery, dude, this young kid, like, God, I rolled with him yesterday. He ended up getting me in like this reverse arm. I don't even know what he did. But like, yeah, no, sorry. I have your brain now. We're both 41 and our brains go squirrel. But you're right on the present thing. So continue on.
And the other part of this too, I mean, there's so many components here, and this is why jiu-jitsu is so deep. Like I tell people, because a lot of people that don't really like know nothing about jiu-jitsu, like it's, oh, I know the thing that's like there's they do that in like UFC a little bit and they have no idea because they're just like ignorant to it because they've never looked into it, is how deep the amount of depth in jiu-jitsu is. Like it's just crazy. Like it's always goes deeper and deeper. But the first 6 months, I would say, for the vast majority of people is like you said with Avery, the kid, the hot kid. I'm sorry, I put hot.
Oh no, 1,000% your type. He might even be a cheerleader too.
I don't want to know. I covered my ears. Trying to creep. I'm trying to reduce my creep factor, but it's just not working. But like you don't even know what he did. So there's that. Everything's like fucking magic. You know, and it really is because you don't have the eyes. It would be like if you went to one of those public ranges, which is you never ever want to do ever again in your life, right? And you're shooting pistol, and these people are kind of like figuring out how to load their gun, and you do like a failure to extract malfunction clearance, and they don't even know what they saw. They don't even know you had a malfunction. They're like, what is he doing with his gun? And it's the same thing with jiu-jitsu where you just, but the cool thing is that probably a better way of saying this than shit rolls downhill. But once you get 4 months in, then the brand new fresh person, given they're not a fucking D1 wrestler that now wants to try his best friend's sport and murdering people in like 3 weeks. But there's actually ways to control them, which is kind of cool. That's why I like gi a little bit better. But is that the hell was I saying? I just fucking lost it.
The shit rolls downhill.
Oh yeah, so that you're there for 4 months, and now the guy that just started, you're a little bit better than him. And so then the longer you kind of do jiu-jitsu, it's like I will try, and this doesn't have nothing to do with being a black belt. Let's say me as a purple belt, I will try things and work on techniques with a newbie or someone that's got 2 months in that I would never try to do with someone who's like got more experience and is better, because I know that I'm not going to hit it. So it's a constant workshop. It just so happens that when you start out, you are like at best an apprentice. You're like, okay, now I saw how he set up his tools. Well, how do you build that? It's like, well, dude, you got to learn how to do it. But yeah, but you had your tool out and then you had a car. You know what I mean? And that's just the reality of it is, but I think that you could either look at that 2 ways, which is this sucks. I hate it. Fuck you. Fuck jiu-jitsu. Fuck God. Whatever people say. Or you could be like kind of in this awe. And if you're from a place of like, this is really curious and interesting how this is happening. I want to know more. 1, it's healthier. 2, you'll keep doing it. And 3, it's like, well, I got it. That dude talk about this. Somebody's mounted on top, or I'm mounted on top of you, right? And you would think like, oh man, Nick is fucked, right? And then you execute an UPA and you hip bump me over, you trap my arm, you trap my foot, you bump me over, and suddenly I'm in your guard. And like people will be like, how the I thought that I thought that Nick was going to die and now he's on top. It's one of those things where just learning what is what. I mean, there's nothing really intuitive about jiu-jitsu. Like I could say that there's a lot that's intuitive about boxing. I mean, there's good boxers and bad boxers, but I'm trying to hit something hard. I'm trying to hit something quick. I'm trying, I've got different punches that are like harder than others, like my jab is not going to be as hard as my cross unless I'm some crazy.
And you got like maybe like 5 or 6 punches.
Right.
And a couple ways to have your feet.
Right. And it's like, and then it's just building combos and speed and ducking and slipping and all that, which by the way, I was not a good ducking person or a slipping person in boxing. So that's why I can only do it for 2 years. Cause I'm like, I can't get another concussion. But with jiu-jitsu, like for perfect example, turn into your partner. So you're on your back, they're in side control. So, I'm on my back, I'm across me. So our spines are aligned like this. So you've got a lot of control and it's like, turn into him. I don't want to turn into him. First of all, he crazy. And second of all, it's like you want to turn away from the danger, if anything. It's like when you press the trigger when you're a new shooter and you flinch or anticipate the shot. That's natural. I'm asking you to put your fucking finger on the bang switch that we have, 8 million years of like DNA level run from the loud sounds. Now I'm asking you to turn into your opponent. Well, no, what if I just don't do that? Well, then you get submitted. Then I take your back and I choke you.
A kind of a point that you did. Maybe someone will watch this that has never done jiu-jitsu. Here's what you can do. You can just show up. Just look at their schedule online. Show up. You can watch. They will let you watch. More likely, they'll be like, "Hey, do you want a gi, or whatever, and you want to jump in?" Just go there and watch. Because what Jeff's talking about of just watching and seeing what happens, you will like. And again, it's like my teacher, like watching him, roll. God, like the flexibility and just you see this stuff and you're like, it's literally like you watching The Matrix the first time when Keanu Reeves like dodges the bullets, right? And you're just like, what is going on here? But go watch.
You know what it's like? This is a perfect analogy or parallel with shooting. When you see really good dudes, jiu-jitsu players, they like flow. You don't like, it's not, well, I mean, obviously there's levels of aggression that may be present if you're going really hard or you're in a competition or whatnot. But generally speaking, if you want to have longevity, you're kind of flowing into moves and you hit this and you hit an arm bar and blah, blah, blah. You watch people like that. Hopefully I look kind of like that. I don't know. Maybe I'm still stutter step and fucking idiot, but, and you watch people move through the shoot house that are really good. They don't look like they're moving fast. They're just flowing through this thing, right? It's like nobody's running. They're just like, it's like the fucking Jedi thing that's happening. It's like, and that's why if you're on the catwalk, at Alliance and you're watching like the really good dudes, if I'm watching Nick and Jesse, move through a house, I'm not on their level, fucking 5% of their level with that stuff. They just move through. And it's the same thing with jiu-jitsu. And then you get the guys that are like, and it's like that. All that dude is doing is blowing through energy, and the equivalent in the shoot house would be, I'm jerky, I'm moving fast, too fast, I'm oversteering my headlights. I didn't even see that fucking target. Who? That? What guy? Oh, that's the guy with the bomb vest and the AK. You know what I mean?
You'll know you're doing that when Joe or one of us says, "Hey, bro, I need you to flow like water and not lurch like a retard."
Got to bring the word back, right?
We're bringing it back. That's right. So question for you though is, do you still deal with highs and lows? Like again, so like to starting out too, and I think for most people like black belt, oh my God, like this dude can kill you with a punch from 2 inches away, right? Like in the jiu-jitsu terms of like, oh, But do you still experience of like highs and lows of, practicing something, learning something? I'm curious, what I'm going through, maybe at the highs and the lows, instead of being all the way up here and all the way down here, maybe maybe it's only like this a little bit, but do you still experience that, or no? Is it pretty even keel? What is it?
That's a really good question. And that can't even be taken at like this on the surface. Again, it's like a deep thing. Like, for example, for me, I have at this point, I've kind of established, Jeff has established Jeff's game, you know. Um, and even like Olympic, we'll say judo competitors, they got like five throws. That's what they're hitting. That's their stuff. You know, they may like play with other things, but you kind of have this your my jujitsu looks different from Brett's jujitsu. It actually looks a lot similar because we have similar games, and we're kind of brought up through Daniel Gracie and the Gracie jujitsu system. But um, it's really hard for me at this point. It's the reason I bring that up is it's really hard for me to learn like new things. Like, I'm always interested in exploring things. I know, first of all, if I just look at something, like, my body's not going to do that. And that's kind of has to do oftentimes with hip mobility and flexibility, or just like knee issues or whatnot. So there's that component where like or my neck, like, I'm not going to be doing me personally. I don't like going inverted. This is not a judgment on the fucking technique, and it boils my blood. And people are like, "Well, it works." I'm like, I'm not saying it works or it doesn't work. I'm saying that for me, it's not something that I do. Like certain inverted stuff, I don't feel comfortable doing that, both physically and also just it's kind of like at this point I got to start going towards the things that scare me. It's kind of like when you, and I keep making parallels to shooting because this is a podcast essentially about shooting, right? Is like, you've done all the things you were supposed to do. You took all the pistol classes, you did your force on force, and now it's like, now we got to put you in the shoot house. We got to make you walk around with the gun, and it's like, oh my God, like, I suck. So there's those moments. I mean, I think that so it's kind of hard for me to incorporate into my game super new things. But that's also, I think, a little bit of fear, honestly. It's like looking my fears in the eyes and being like, you know what, I'm going to have to. In fact, I was talking to Scotty Oates from who's with Shivworks, and he's a former SEAL, really cool cat, does a lot of teaching with Craig all over the country, and he's like, he has to continually keep it interesting for him, and one of the ways that he does that, and one of the ways that he has growth, is by, he's a third degree black belt now, and I think third degree, and he's like, I get subbed by, like, I get fucking purple belts because he's trying shit that he knows he's not good at. And therein lies the issue with my ego. I mean, and the first part of knowing you have a problem is being aware of it. If you don't know that every night you're hammering back 24 fucking beers, it's like, I don't have a problem. It's like, you got to be aware of it to change it. But it is a real thing. And so that's kind of where I've come to. That's where I'm at with it. And I do want to start learning. There are some things that I really want to start learning because like we did Daniel Gracie, we didn't really work a lot with leg locks and heel hooks and stuff. And I'm pretty all right at keeping people from getting them. But that's just because I'm using my jujitsu to keep ahead of theirs, kind of like chess. But if they get it, they get it, one. And two, I really just don't know much about them. And as John Donaher says, that you're kind of ignoring like half the body. So that's something I want to investigate. There's certain things I really don't care about, and I'm never going to look at because I don't give a shit. I'm not doing barambolos. I don't care about them. If you want to do them, that's fine. That's not my game. I don't give a shit.
So my first ever full class that I showed up to started with no-gi, and we learned straight leg locks. Now,
Good.
I was not out there I can tell you now of anything that we did, right? Like I remember it was under here and my arm was hooked under and like
Right.
But I never went and practiced them. It was just funny of like I told Jesse, it was like, oh my God, like you're gonna break someone's leg. I'm like, no, I didn't do anything, you know. But something I do kind of want to talk about in related to this area too is understanding a win. I don't think I fully understood what a win was. Like I told my first story of like, oh, I executed this stonewall, double leg takedown defense. It was huge high. And then like, you kind of always get that mental aspect of like, I need that win again. Like that's how I'm progressing. It comes to be like a goal in of itself. And it's not. And something that I've really learned, especially like the last 3 weeks or so, because I've been able to be there like 3 days a week, is man, like last night, my last roll of the night, that's what usually when I'm the gas the most, didn't get submitted at all. When I was rolling with Avery before that, he ended up getting me in one thing, but he only got me once, and I had I almost pulled off like a sweet takedown on him. Like, even though I lost, like that was still a huge win for me, like most of the times you showing up is a huge win.
Bam. Bam.
I saw this. I love TikTok, by the way. Like, I love it.
I refuse.
Because it's people take stuff they should never put online and just put it out there.
That's why I don't want to see it. I need to have more hope for humanity. But go ahead.
No.
You're like you're done higher level.
But I saw this video on there, and I'm going to ask you this question: what is the hardest belt to get in jiu-jitsu?
Fuck. I wish you had texted me that because I don't know. Well, I'll say for me, because and again, it's like anytime you're listening to people,
give me the easy answer though. Just give me the easy answer.
I'm gonna for me it was black belt.
Okay.
Because the amount of you have a
yep. So I'm gonna follow that up here. Of the hardest belt to get is the white belt. The hardest belt to earn is the black belt.
Whoa. Yeah, because you got to show up to get the white belt, and that's the hardest part.
And most people never do that. So that was like one of those things of like, damn, that was good. I give credit to the guy's name or whatever, whoever said it. But that was one of those things of like, dude, just showing up is a win.
Right.
Like just starting is a win. The rest of this stuff will come. But yeah, I thought that was kind of cool. That was a good motivational thing for me.
I like that. It's true. I think it's true. I would agree with that.
Which will bring me to my next point here. And I have not told you this, I believe. So I have been wrestling for 2 months in jiu-jitsu. I don't know one submission. Now, let me preface that of like, I learned them. And there's a difference between learning something and being able to apply it against a person that has a say in it. And then the level of application of said submission. Like there are dudes that can choke me out. There are dudes that know how to apply a choke. Those are different things.
Right.
And something that I initially, because you feel like, all right, so I'm coming into jiu-jitsu, like, dude, you got to learn, a Kimura right off. You got to learn an arm bar. You got to like, and so you go on YouTube, you start doing all this stuff. And like, it took me a few weeks to kind of get this, especially having a talk with Cecil. So I called Cecil. I was like, Cecil, man, because I've done 4 or 5 classes with Cecil.
Right. The immediate action combatives and whatnot. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, hey man, I'm really struggling because I was like, I'm not getting any of these moves, and I was like, I'm really worried about, hand and arm control, like really hand control. He's like, dude, like that's actually what jujitsu is, you know. And he kind of did this whole spiel about, you know, why kind of some people mess up and whatever, but you know, it was like, dude, don't fucking even worry about that stuff. He's like, and then it really brought me back to what the fundamental thing, like if you go take, he has his 2-day class that the day one is jujitsu self-defense related and the day two is pugilism. The first thing he ever says to you in regards to you know, the goals of this is position before submission.
Yeah.
Position before submission. And especially as you go down this jiu-jitsu road, like you have to be in a good position to get the submission. You have to. And so I've completely now dropped of like, man, I need a Kimura or Americana or, you know, this or that, or like we still teach them they still teach them in class. And I still practice them, but I never go into a role with someone of like, I'm going to do a submission. Now, I think eventually the goal is to get to there. But right now, you know, I'm not caught up in the finishing. I'm not caught up in I need that win. I am just working on getting better. So like imagine now if, you know, if all you're focused on, and this is how I see it, is if all I'm focused on is me trying to get a submission move and making somebody tap, like I'm missing the most important part of the game. In, you know, in my mind. But I'm curious of your thoughts.
Well, I find it intoxicating how hard you are on yourself.
Because
it's really,
my hair?
I what?
Because of my hair?
No, your hair. I thought I complimented your hair. No, but no, we are hard on ourselves, and you know, I think that this also kind of goes into just part age, but also just being a competitive person when we're doing like an endeavor like this. But yeah, I mean, fuck. Like I said, I think that the 6-month mark of training pretty religiously will allow you to start just being able to survive. Like it's survival right now, you know. And so hitting a submission, if you did it right now, it would be fucking luck, and it would probably be because the other person had 1 month. You know, it's just the way it works. But the whole, and this is, it's said 100,000 times probably a day, you know, collectively all over the face of the planet in jiu-jitsu, studios, gyms, academies, is like position before submission. And what that really means is, let me see if I can make a gun analogy. You know, it would be like trying to hit the target without understanding sights and trigger. You may hit it. No. You may hit it. That was really good.
That was really good.
I just thought of that right now. But that's what it is. So like there are millions of Americans that will hit their target not having any fucking idea about the sights of the trigger. But how reliably are they doing that? Can they do it on demand?
And under pressure.
For pressure, it's like, yeah, exactly. And then we're starting to stack things, you know. But so the position before submission is, it's how can I be effective from a position that I have complete loss of control. I have no control over what's going on. I think that's a kind of another way of thinking about it, is like, if I'm like, if you think the word position, if I think control before submission is another thing. And if there was probably a hierarchy, it would be like, oh, fuck, I don't know. What comes first, position or control? Maybe, I don't know. I'm not that smart.
I'll ask Cecil next time I talk to him.
Yeah, ask Cecil. Ask one of our wise sage friends.
I'm going to see if I can host him up here too, by the way.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
That'd be cool. So, yeah, trying to hit something off of being in a it's just luck at that point. And we you know, in the gun world, we don't bank on luck.
Isn't a tactic.
You know, we don't bank on having luck. We bank on positive repetitions of a skill set. And for jiu-jitsu, that's in my opinion, positional sparring. And then you slowly ramp up the intensity until you're actually rolling and now capable of hitting something that you've learned. But I mean, takes a lot of myelination.
Yeah. And something I want to point out too, for those that, hopefully watch this, they've never done jujitsu, is like, especially like, really, I mean, a bunch of the blue belts and up, and even still some of the, 3 and 4 stripe. Can you be a 4 stripe? You can be a 4 stripe, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. White belts, like, we'll be rolling, and like, there's times where I know that they could submit me with something.
Yeah. Well, that means that they're being cool and letting you work.
But then also too is they might be like, hey, take your foot and push my right knee, or whatever, as we're rolling too. So it's never just this super of like, oh, and this could be different at other people's gyms. At least at my gym, it is very
nurturing.
Yes. Yeah. And it's not to say like if however Avery got this reverse armbar on me or whatever, I obviously did something to mess it up, and I also want him to take that too.
Right.
But then sometimes, he's helping me out of like, hey, you're around my arm here, go for an underhook or whatever. So I would say most, if not all, gyms are going to be like that, especially when you start rolling. Because number one, they're helping you learn to be in control of yourself, instead of just, wigging out. And they're also there to help you because, and this kind of leads into my next point, if I keep going on, is it's okay to be in a spot and not know what to do. Like it's weird. And like it happened to me last night. I kept taking a dude's, he went to turtle. I'd get him in a turtle position. I have his back, and I would I take him down to my left or right side. I would try to get, my legs over and, not cross them, but hook them into his legs, couldn't get that, but I could get him to go back to turtle. And it's like, we repeated this thing. So after a while, I just sat there and I literally told him, I was like, I have nothing else I can do, And I think part of this is, and I'm kind of remembering specific moments. Like I remember rolling with Avery at this point in time, and I was like, I know if I put my head there, it's a bad idea. And I don't have any other idea. Let's see what happens. It's learning experience. Guess what? He put me in a guillotine. And part of that too is like, it's also kind of fun, the learning experience of like, there is I don't know, maybe it's weird of me but I'm like, I know this is going to be stupid, but let's see what happens. Because where else do you learn that from?
Right.
But something that, and again, it was harder starting out for me. It's much easier now of, it is okay to get into a position of like, man, I don't know what to do. Because also half the time, especially if I'm rolling, like the position where I was talking about of taking someone's back, he was on their white belt, like a 1-stripe white belt. Most of the times with the other people, I'll ask them why we're rolling, and they'll tell me.
But he doesn't know either.
A lot of times, again, like you talked about is, they might tell me to work to do this to get out of that position. But then that allows them to work something.
Yeah.
And let's see how it works versus this dude. There's a lot of good relationships in regards to, how you can help each other.
Yeah. And, different gyms and academies, there's like the gym and academy culture that is specific to that gym or academy. I try to stay in ones that are like douchebag free. I like nurturing places. I just wouldn't be attracted to a place where they're, not necessarily even meatheads, just like kind of douchebaggy. Like I like helping others grow. I like when people help me grow, in that nurturing kind of environment. And some of the most like, this is what I've said for a while now is like, you want to cure bigotry, racism, anti-Semitism, classism, do jiu-jitsu, because there's everybody on that mat at once. and you're all just people doing jujitsu, and now you're helping somebody that's black, that's Latino, that's gay, that's trans. You're the common bond that you have is that you're trying to be kind to your training partner, generally speaking. You know what I mean? I mean, obviously, sometimes you want to win. That's definitely the competitive aspect. But in general, it feels good to help other people because then you've got a training partner that's going to give you better roles, and you have more fun in the class because you're not being a dickhead, and you're going to last there because if you're a dickhead enough times and can't be kind of roped and reeled back in, someone's just going to injure you and get you the fuck out of there, which I know happened to one person who will remain nameless. Bilateral knee injuries. And I don't think that is by accident.
I will say, like last night, so we were working. Someone has your back, you have their back. We work in this bow and arrow choke, and then right and left, and then working escapes. And then so like we practiced with our partners a few different times and different options. And then we went to drill it. And so like there might be a name of it, King of the Hill potentially, but like we had 7 people on the mat, and then we had the line on the wall. Right. We'd go, and the winner would stay. So I won once, and then it was like a 14-year-old girl who's in the adults class comes up, and I have her back. I'm like, how can I win? Like, no. And then so I let her win, and then eventually came back around. I don't want to make it sound like I'm winning because I wasn't. Like I was right. going. I happened to win another one, and then she ends up coming again. I'm like, oh god damn it! Like I can't beat a 14-year-old girl here trying to working on jujitsu.
Yeah,
like I can't be that much of a dick.
Right,
I can't do it. But I'll tell you what, though, there's like a 17-year-old girl there that is a legit blue belt. She just got it. Whoops my ass. You would look at her and nope, not a thing.
Nope.
Oh.
Yeah.
This chick will murder dudes. Murder them. Which is awesome.
And I really love, I think I love even more, well, I appreciate more when women start jiu-jitsu than even when they start shooting. Because there's just such a level of forced intimacy with rolling with someone, and it's such a male-dominated sport that or activity, if you want to call it that like when a chick shows up to a class, I'm protecting that bitch. You know what I mean? And we have like there's this one girl in our class, her name is Deanna. She brings her son named Isaac, and he's hysterical. Oh my god, I gotta tell you this. So he'll come and he'll have like his little Nintendo thing in his hands or whatever. And the other day, so I'm changing, I'm like taking my gi off, and he's sitting there like on one of those folding chairs, and he's got the thing, and he's like, in his hands, and I take out my cloud defensive handheld, and I just go, and he's, and then I waited a minute, and I'm trying not to burst into laughter, and then I see him kind of go like this, and he's like rubbing his head because he's kind of tired, and I go, and he looks around. He's looking for like a spaceship. I couldn't stop laughing. But anyway, so Deanna comes, and she's doing really well. And it's like these are the people that we need to embrace and like, encourage them to work really hard. She's working really hard. She's starting to get stuff. We've got people that are like sponges there. Our white belts are really tough. But I think that, as opposed to with shooting is like just naturally by default or by design or whatever, not as intimate of a thing. Like I've got this tool, I'm driving the bullets into the target, and that's what I'm doing. But in this, I've got a dude I don't know. I'm a chick. Now we're touching each other, which again, I've talked about this many times on our show before, is like, we don't really as Americans like touch each other a lot. I mean, unless you're shaking hands, patting backs, maybe giving a hug or fucking, you don't just walk around like, hi stranger. Doesn't happen. It's not a thing. So let's
make it a thing. Everyone go out right now
Touch a stranger's face. We should call it National Touch a Stranger's Face Day. I bet you would have people doing it thinking it was a real fucking national. We got to do it, man. Oh my God, would that be funny?
Oh. So sorry though, I interrupted you, but
no, I mean that's the complete thought is, people. It's really a beautiful thing, and that's why developing like a good gym culture is so important. And unfortunately, like, you don't know what it's going to be until you go if you're not already in that academy or gym. But ones that you walk in, you're like, they seem like dicks. They're not really supporting each other. There's not much laughing, smiling, and I try to cuss 400 times when I'm there. I'm kidding. I don't actually try. It just naturally
it just happens.
So yeah.
So here's something that was interesting because I didn't expect this to be in the jiu-jitsu world. Like, it's talked about like outside of the world, especially of like new people coming in of like, oh man, okay, should I do no gi? Should I do gi? If I'm in the streets, maybe it is no gi. Well, but actually, but I live in Wisconsin where they've got coats, so it's gi. And like, even, that's the outside world. The inside, I even saw that discussion of like, hey, like I want to get really good at this as quick as I can. Should I just do no gi? Should I do gi? Da 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 da. And it's like both. Right. Like here's what I have loved so far. I mean, starting out, no gi kind of, to me, there's a little bit of it. There's advantages to both, to everything. Like no gi, what I really take from it is with no gi, the biggest thing that I've taken away from it so far is learning, body placements and weight, of how like I'm shifting weight, whether top or bottom side, side, whatever position that I'm in. I get, because there's just, they can't grab and be pulling me down while I'm trying to do this. The no-gi aspect that I get a lot from is just feeling the weights in positions of what I'm doing with my weight, what they do, pushing or pulling on me. That's one of the best things that I've gotten from no-gi, is just the opportunity to roll around. Because you can start to feel when people shift their weight, or when you're applying weight, or, weight on, different holds or grabs, or, whatever it is. That's what I've really enjoyed about no-gi. In gi, there's a lot more to it, but I thoroughly enjoy it as well. I personally think that doing both has helped me a lot. Because again, number one, it's more experience. It's not the exact same thing, but it's close enough. And I've had massive benefits from both. But it was interesting to see that conversation in jiu-jitsu of like, should I do no gi? Should I do gi? Which one's better? Like, like, yeah. I get maybe having, like, you kind of talked about of you like gi better, and throw it out there as to why, and what are your thoughts for someone starting out? Should they do both? Should they only do one?
Well, this is really interesting, I find, because I was just talking to Brett Linebarger of Daniel Crazy Delco, where I train, and I'm going to be teaching fundamentals class, and it's interesting. Like, I used to say, oh, you should really do gi first, because you learn technical components, and then you then do no gi if you have a choice and stuff like that. But he was saying this, and I agree. It's like they're both good. I would actually say do the classes you can make, regardless of what they are. Because you're going to learn and grow with both of them. And I've actually learned to love gi, or excuse me, no gi again, just because I went and I was like, well, we'll see what happens. And a lot of it, the shit is really the same. The grip's stiffer. Some, you don't have maybe as much control with I can't control someone just through their clothing or their pajamas, so to speak. Um, but I think that, man, go to the classes you can make. You're going to grow at either or at both of them. Um, yeah, I don't think it's that definitive. Well, you should really do 1.5 years of gi, and then once you reach that and a three-stripe white belt, you should start doing no gi. It's like, nah, just go and do both, and you'll have fun. The biggest thing
Um,
is have fun, but yeah, I don't think that there's a better way of doing it one way or the other.
Something that you just brought up, which I want to talk about earlier, is so you guys have a beginner class where, and this is something especially for someone that's new to getting into this, is so like my gym is probably not big enough to support that. Like,
Right.
I'm assuming you guys probably are pretty big.
We will be.
Yeah.
Like we actually have not been doing the fundamentals class yet because we didn't have like a location that would support it. But now that he's going to be opening up, without going into like a whole bunch of
Yeah.
pointless shit, but now that we're going to have like a place where we can kind of do whatever we want, that Tuesday night is going to be a fundamentals class that I'm going to teach. And maybe eventually I'll teach another one, but no, I think that there's the thing that's good about a fundamentals class is that I don't have to apologize necessarily, which I'm not going to anyway, but I don't have to feel like, okay, well, we got to cover, I got to cover break falls tonight. Because if I do that in a regular class, which I've done, I'm putting in pointers that I think that the people that have been doing it for a while need to hear. But it's a little bit more. It's a bit of a harder sell if I'm doing that as one of the techniques that we're learning that day. Whereas with just like an open class, so-called open class, then it's like, well, you're gonna have people that are brown belts, people that are white belts. So to cover, yeah, but I mean, I don't have a 2.0 class.
Yeah.
Well, that's the other joke.
Something that, if they offer that, do that one as well. Coming into this, if you're like at my gym, that's not schedule or people feasible probably at this time. So like be prepared to come in. Like I told you, like my first time coming in, other than the first time like I showed up, coming in, no gi, like an ankle lock. Like they're not going to walk in, you're not going to start this and like, okay, we're building this solid foundation and then we're adding this layer and then we're adding this layer. It's just it's all over the place, and there could be reasons for that, this will kind of come into my next point here, but like there's a lot of dudes in my gym that do competition. A lot of dudes. We have a very competitive tournament gym. And so, which I get is if 3/4 of the class all needs to work on X, okay, cool. And then and again, this is me guessing that then, our instructor will be like, okay, well, they're going to work on this. Well, everyone else can still work this, but then they're going to be working this aspect of it, like the escape part, for example, or whatever. All of us coming in, and it kind of goes back to like the highs and lows thing that we initially talked about. Like you might come in and just not understand any of it that day. And it could be that week, because usually for us, it continues to build through the week. And then Friday is just more rolling typically and less drill time. But if they offer the beginner thing, start that out. Don't be like, well, I want to learn to be a killer at jiu-jitsu, so I'm just going to do the regular stuff. Like, dude, I wish that we had a beginner thing too,
It's yeah, I mean, and I would shy away from using the word beginner and
foundation level.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's semantics, but I like calling it like fundamentals. And the way that I explain the fundamentals are like the fundamentals of jiu-jitsu. We want to have solid fundamentals so that we're not building a house on sand because the structure won't be able to be supported, by building it on sand. But one of the things is I wouldn't feel like, not to say that you're saying this, but I wouldn't say that you're being not led down the wrong path, but you're not going to have the same level of accelerated learning or just learning at your own pace, because again, that's why the gym fucking culture is so important. Because if I, like, for example, who you pair people with, not for rolling, but just for class, like if I see Nick is new, okay, Jeff, you go work with Nick, or one of our blue belts, who's really nice or whatever, go work with Nick, so that I know as the instructor or the coach or whatever, that I don't have to constantly be watching how, two dudes with 5 days in are going to be. Do you know what that is? And they're not going to have any fucking idea, because that blue belt's going to be like, okay, well, so when you're on your back and I'm going to get in this side control, and then you guys are going to talk about that. So there's this wonderful symbiotic kind of teaching thing going on, because while he's doing that, and sometimes like the white belt will be like, I'm so sorry, like that you gotta be paired with me, because it's like, no, don't be sorry, because that motherfucker's learning by teaching, or at least assisting you and helping you. He's learning better about now how to explain it, and he's then learning like, oh, you know what, I actually kind of do put my knee here. And he's reinforcing it. It's kind of like when you do a hot wash in shooting class. It's like the fucking point is, well, some people's classes, but the point of it is not to get like, your ego stroked as an instructor. The point is so that I can verbalize something, which then the other people may have forgotten during the day. They also hear and they say, oh yeah, I'd learned that too. And I'm also reinforcing it in my own mind, So when I go and work with, let's say I'm just a blue belt or a purple belt or whatnot, and I'm going and working with a new guy, that's good. That's helpful for me too, So it really is that, even if you don't necessarily have a fundamentals class, it winds up getting, just by nature, you're getting some of that stuff, like, oh, okay, all right, well, yeah, because if I close so if he's between my legs, then, and my feet are crossed, and that's closed guard. That makes sense, because my ankles are kind of crossed. And if my feet are open, then that's open guard. And then I didn't even have to tell you that. You know what I'm saying? Because the blue belt that you're working with did. Yeah. So
yeah, in our gym, higher belts work with lower belts.
Yeah, that's great.
So like I was rolling with Jeremy last night, or starting out learning with Jeremy, who just got his brown belt last week.
Yeah, cool.
So something kind of on this point too, that this is more so for the gun world that might be out here listening. Again, and I should mention too that I don't know when yet, but there is the in September, there is the Combative Summit happening. So Cecil Birch we mentioned, Greg Douglas that we mentioned, others. We're going to be doing a show with them too. So this question of, well, jiu-jitsu, you would never go to the ground in the streets and whatever, like all that bullshit. Like, we're going to talk about that later on. But something too of like for some reason, and I didn't have a full grasp of this until I started jiu-jitsu, was like, oh, well, jiu-jitsu's bad enough, but those competition guys are doing something even worse. Let me fucking set you straight. The competition dudes, are they learning competition stuff? Yes, absolutely they are. Let me tell you, though, they are competing against dudes working as hard as they are. The competition dudes that are like hard into competition are even fucking scarier. Like this thing of like, oh, well, they're just learning competition jiu-jitsu. They are fucking scarier. Because those dudes, like, and leading up to this, when I talked about earlier, like there are dudes that can choke you out. Like the competition dudes know how to put you in a choke. Like, there's getting like, a choke, but if you're having like the inside of your thumb on that carotid artery, like you got to be on it. Like these competition dudes, like they are out for, not in the class, but for what their goals are, they are out to like murder dudes. So if you're ever like, oh, that dude just does competition jujitsu, no, nope. Like, I don't know how this comes around in this industry now of like oh, well, competition jujitsu. That's even worse. No, it's
Well,
even worse for fucking you. These dudes are straight up killers, dude.
it,
Like,
it,
and you see him roll, and you're like, dear God, they would kill somebody.
well, yeah, for sure. And I mean, again, it's analogous to shooting, like competition shooters. Like if I'm a fucking USPSA master, I can smoke some shit, and if I'm, a competition jiu-jitsu guy, I'm I may be able to smoke some shit with jiu-jitsu, some dudes with jiu-jitsu. However, both of those people need to, in my opinion, contextualize certain things if they're doing it for a
Oh,
street application.
absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? But so poo-pooing either is foolish. And also, taking that competition jiu-jitsu guy, and then plugging in weapons-based environment training, awesome. Taking that USPSA master and now plugging in some combative stuff, necessary. See what I'm saying? So it's like, but to be like, oh, well, competition jiu-jitsu is just stupid and it wouldn't work on the street. It's like, you should try to prove that. It's one of those things, like, it's just kind of, I understand where we're kind of coming from, criticizing certain things with competition players and whatnot. Um, and yes, if they go to an ECQC, they're going to learn. Oh shit! I mean, that's the fucking point of auditing your stuff, right?
Yeah.
So that I learn. Hey, my jujitsu's solid. Can't throw a punch. I can throw a punch, and my jujitsu's solid. I just got stabbed 84 times in the taint. My jiu-jitsu's solid. I can throw a punch. I didn't get stabbed in the taint, but I cannot verbalize for shit. As soon as I started talking, I got punched in the head, and I didn't even see it coming. You know what I mean? So if we're looking to be like a fully well-rounded practitioner / combatant, then there are things that we will have to do. But pointing our finger at the competition jiu-jitsu guys and being like, "That's not gonna work." Well, it's like, I mean, fuck you, kind of.
I just see those dudes of like, again, at every class, we roll for, last half an hour, 5-minute rounds. And like when two competition dudes go, like, again, most of the rolling, and that depends on who's going, it's somewhere between 60 and 80%. When the two competition dudes go, it's like 120.
Right.
Like it is just, it's another level, and it stands out. It just absolutely stands out. So the next point that I want to talk about is, this has been a big learning thing for me, is notes. So something you kind of talked about earlier of like being at this age and learning something new. Also, too, especially for like the last 8 years, especially working under Joe, you also develop habits in the way that you learn. Like, I think your brain starts to develop how it learns, or at least how it learns best. And you get in a rhythm of how information's presented, of how you collect that information, and then practice it, process it, etc. Starting out was really rough, especially with names, because again, like, dude, there are so many names for fucking everything in jiu-jitsu. God, there's at least 4 names for every single thing. Because they'll be like, this is what we call it, but you hear it as this. Like, I'm struggling to remember the name of one. So eventually, I had to start taking notes. I had to. I didn't want to use my phone, because I don't want my phone out there, and especially if it gets knocked over, rolled on, or water dumped on.
Well, you
have
look
off the side.
You also look like you're on your phone and not taking notes. It's very hard to convince. No one's going to ever think that you're taking notes. They're going to be like, hey, the new guy's like on fucking Grinder again. I'm going to be like, what?
No, he's not. I'm checking. So I did a little digging around and looking online. And then what I found was this Jiu Jitsu training journal. If you watch this on YouTube, there's a link down below to it on Amazon. It's not very much. Just of comparing all of there's several different books out there that are specifically for Jiu Jitsu training notes. I thought this one was the best, so I'll show it to you guys. So kind of the cool thing is, well, it's got my phone number on it, but it's got like the white, all the dates you earn your blue belt and your name and phone number on it. And then you can write up your own table of contents. So as you fill this book, you can then go write a table of contents so you can actually go back to it later on, which I thought was good. And it's several pages of that. But here's basically the overall way of how it works. You got a bunch of techniques that you can write down. I'll talk about how I take notes here in a second. So you got technique 1, technique 2, technique 3, technique 4, and rolling goals. And then you can check those off if you hit them. And then you have your rolling notes. So when you actually go through and roll, you got notes there. You give yourself a performance rating. I have not filled that out because they would be all ones. And then future improvements that you learned from that. So for example, this was April 3rd, so 17 days ago. So we did arm drags from butterfly, half guard, full guard. These were sweeps. Sweeps, arm drags from butterfly, half guard, full guard. This is no gi, by the way. Arm drag takedowns, sacrificial knee, and lift. Technique 2. So this is going into gi. We were doing knee cuts, working on those. And then also starting out, which I'll talk about here in a minute, is apparently this is common. I got tennis elbow in both my elbows. So I asked for some notes. He gave me voodoo grips. But then, this is when I got put in that guillotine. So like I wrote in here, when in guillotine, push to flatten out, but don't let them get leg hooks in, block, work to mount. So then I wrote some other rolling notes here. Future improvements, win and guard, don't frame on ground, get arms in and on them, work in the box, T-Rex arms. So as I go through, I just got more pages of notes in here, but on a lot of this stuff, what I do is there's no one else that takes notes in my gym. Which the cool thing is if my teacher sees me writing, he'll wait for me to stop writing, which is really nice. And then a bunch of times too, I'll just ask him, I was like, hey, what's the name of that? So a lot of times what I have in here is I just have the name of something. So like, for example, on this page, it's just the name of it. And then I'll go on YouTube and look it up, and then I can fill in some notes. That's something that, because it's hard too of like, all right, here's the one thing we're learning. He explains that. I'm writing. We'll go practice that with our partner. We'll come back. We'll add, maybe you went to the right side on it. Now we're going to go to the left side. So write some scribble quick row stuff. Or, we could just be working 3 different chokes or 3 different submissions or 3 different escapes. I'll just write the names down. And then I'll have to, after class, I'll come back and ask him like, hey, can I get this detail, etc. But a lot of times I write just the names down because I'm horrible remembering names, people's names, any names. And then I'll come back to them to write notes. For example, last night's. So like, here's last night's notes that I wrote here. So like, I've been working very specific things, and some I'll mention too is I always mess up my schedule on Wednesday because I'm used to showing up doing no gi. Wednesday nights, the kids class has a gi and then a no gi. I always show up early, because I think I'm going to do no gi, and it's the kids no gi class. Cool thing is Jeremy was there, and this is something to try to take advantage of too if you have time or someone's there. I was like, hey, I suck at if they're in mount on me, escaping out. Then I actually had to write the name down for this other thing because I can't even remember it here. So I worked on escapes for full guards, lockdown escapes. Those have been like last 2 weeks. Like I can't do anything. I'm stuck. It's like we worked those. Man, if you show up early or can stay late and ask questions or practice and drill something, like that's where it is. And something that you were talking about as well of having like the one belt, having higher belts or with lower belts is sometimes they explain something to you that you didn't know you were looking for, but it makes it click. Like something I have been struggling with is we kind of talked about like the fundamental classes starting out. And if you have those, take them versus, just starting is like when I teach CQB, we have 5 principles of CQB. I go through the principles. Okay, cool. Then I have these procedures. Like I want these principles for jiu-jitsu. Like I need them for me because it's like, okay, if I can at least do a principle, I'm doing okay. And then last night he gave me one. I got to go back to it here because I wrote it down. Which page is it on here? Okay, so principle, and this is loosely because there's never, always, but, for passing, create space by spreading them out. For me, keep them in close. So it's like, all right, I finally got that principle. And that was him, not me even asking about it. Like we were working these escapes and he just kind of said that, and I was like, that's one thing I need. But this book's really good for taking notes. It's worked well for me. The instructors seem to be, help me get anything that I need. And by the way, one of the big things I worked on too, which you talked about earlier, was Oompa Escape. And then the big thing from that was work on chaining escapes together because I'm not good at that either.
Yeah. You got to pretty much, I would say, you got to work on everything.
Oh, yeah. No, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
I mean, and that's another reason why I love teaching the fundamentals classes, or just the fundamentals in general, is to incorporate principles. So like I say that jiu-jitsu is kind of all about creating space and taking away someone else's space, And so if I think about that, that's good. So anyway, but yeah, no, that's cool. That's a very interesting. I'm going to look at that link. Maybe we can get some copies at the gym.
Which leads me to my next point too, is the self-learning aspect of this. A lot of this too, I think you don't have to self-learn. It helps a lot because so many people explain it differently. Again, I've got on YouTube. Again, it's also not really hard. Like every YouTube video loves to have, the top 5 submissions white belts need, the top leg submissions. Like, don't get stuck going down the rabbit hole in this, but self-learning is incredibly important in this. I need to do more of it. I've just been so anti-YouTube forever and anti-social media. But so I think self-learning, because this pairs along with the notes aspect of whatever I write down, search it on YouTube, look it up, and it's another opportunity to learn.
Nick, that's Nick. He just walked right by. He's a blue belt with 2 stripes.
Oh, a 2-stripe blue belt.
Yeah, 2-stripe blue belt.
The second to last point that I have, and this has been new, especially for what I've been going through body-wise, but listening to your body in this. Number one thing I've learned, tap early. Tap early. Like when I got in the arm bar last night, it wasn't in. It was 1000% going there in 3 seconds. And the way my elbows have been, fighting tennis elbow a little bit, dude, I just tapped. You got it, man. And if he needed it, he would have been like, hey, is this really good? I'm like, well, let's find out,
This is what you need. Expand your hand bands. Have I ever showed you these?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, that's
grip strength.
What?
Talking about working grip strength.
Yeah,
right?
but for tennis elbow.
Oh, no.
Yeah, put these in the link. Expand your hand bands from Iron Mind. You can get them on Amazon.
Okay, you'll have to send me the link and I'll add it.
I'll send you the link. I know where it is.
But something that's been a learning experience for me is understanding what pains are normal, what pains are not normal, and then kind of how to sustain yourself. So right now, because I rolled yesterday, I am sore to a degree. There's going to be muscle pain and tendon pain and that's learning to, especially as you're starting this out and you're building again, the first day after so the first time I did jiu-jitsu, I did no gi and gi, and I didn't roll. Dude, I was so sore the next day. I had a hard time walking downstairs. Like you work so many muscles. And then like this morning, look, my abs are, okay. The muscles under my stomach, a little sore. I'll talk about something that's really helped me recovery aspect on this. But one thing that I would caution, because I've seen some new people like, oh, you know what, man, I'm too sore. I'm going to skip out the next 2 classes or whatever. Like the only way to start getting, through this is there's going to be a level of soreness to all of this, especially starting out. But being able to understand though, when it's just the soreness of your body and trying to recover and the injury aspect. Like I finally took 1 day off for my elbows like a couple weeks ago. Because it was just so painful. But that's something that I'm still learning a little bit of, because again, like I'm not doing super high level, super crazy positional stuff. So I think there's going to be more learning aspect to that. But I think the key is listening to your body on this, but also understanding of like there's going to be a level of I don't want to say pain, but soreness going along with this. As dude, I had the weirdest muscles in places like hurt, like it, I don't know. So a couple things that, I'm going through a complete change in everything in my body. Found out something that has been really hurting me dealing with my weight is my thyroid ain't been working. So I'm on T3 hormone therapy right now, which has been amazing. And starting to just look more into this. Heath, who did shows on here forever, Heath spends a lot of time on this type of stuff. But here's been the biggest thing that's been helping recovery for me. Go and do your own research on it. There is one actual study published on this. You can look it up. There's a bunch of other blogs. Don't take too much from the blogs, because again, they're all paid for. They're all, just like the gun firearms media. There ain't a whole lot of truth to much of this shit. So go actually read this. There's one study on this. But this has made a significant difference in the recovery, how the time wise, but literally just how I feel. And it's been MK677, ibutamorin. I'm probably saying it wrong. I don't know, Jeff, if you could read that at all.
I don't know.
So it's either a SARM or a SERM. I can't remember which one. Here's the big thing with it, is if you go look up, there's been one study done on it. Now they say there's a bunch of other SARMs that do this and that, SR 9009. There's never been an actual study done on it. There's one study done on MK677. This one will slightly increase HGH production, even on a calorie deficit. It's not some super crazy amount. It's not like you're injecting human growth hormone into your body or anything like that. But in regards to how much I recover, especially like the next day, this has been absolutely phenomenal. These bottles, I bought it from Warrior Labs. Like they're like $60 a bottle, I want to say. I take 1 milliliter a day. So one bottle is 30 days. So it's about $2 a day. It has been a significant difference in how I would feel going into jiu-jitsu versus especially when I started rolling. And then the next day of like, if you're, I won't even make that joke. But regards to like, just like last night, my back was killing me, especially like lower back muscles for what we were working. Today, it's way, way, way better. Muscle soreness in my arms, my legs. This has been a huge thing for me. It's also helped me sleep better. Again, look it up on yourself, do whatever it is. And I believe too, it also increases IGF-1, which if you're diabetic, this should help stopping insulin resistant as well. The IGF-1 thing does that. Go look up the study. You can decide for yourself. But this has been really, really good for me. I think I'm talking Jesse into getting it now. But just that little bit of HGH helps your muscle and body recover a little bit quicker. But it's been a significant difference for me. Absolutely. So try that out. So Jeff, my last point on this is, again, we talked about like all these things of like, no gi and gi and, you don't have submissions and, the challenges and the hard things. And something not to get lost in this is enjoying the experience of it. Like there's the competitive aspect of it. For me, and I'm not there yet, but there, to me anyways, there is, and I experienced this in ECQC, I talked to you about before too. There is an aspect to this of like when you manhandle someone else, like it does make you feel good. That's not the goal of it, but of having that confidence in yourself of like taking someone and bending them to your will. Like I'm not doing that in jiu-jitsu, don't get me wrong. There is an aspect to that, but the competition, being better at physical fighting skills, groundwork, the camaraderie, making new friends, just improving your own health, building muscles you didn't know were ever bad. Like there are so many positives to this. Like don't also lose just the fun experience of jiu-jitsu. Because just think, if you start it in 2 months, you're going to go on YouTube and start talking about it. It's that fun, right? Like Jesse or Jeff always used to talk jiu-jitsu all the time. It'd be like, oh my God, shut up. Then fucking Jesse starts doing it. So then him and Tim, all they fucking do is talk jiu-jitsu. And it's like, okay, I'm in. Guess what? All I want to fucking talk about now, jiu-jitsu. Like it's such a deep pool. Like it's not even a deep pool. It's now treading, like the firearms industry can go fucking deep. BJJ goes like Mariana Trench. Like, but don't forget the fun of this. Like it is fun for so many different reasons. And you might have your own reasons as to why it's fun, but in the end, enjoy the experience that you're getting to do. Maybe you don't need to do this for, forever if you don't want to, but while you're doing it, enjoy it and have fun. That's all I got, Jeff.
Agreed. No, I mean, that's my only recommendation. I got three recommendations. Go to a gym that you get a good feeling about the culture. Start 4 things, I guess. Start your training. Get a mouth guard, because nobody looks good with missing teeth, and you can get a concussion, which I could tell you about. And then the 4th thing is have fun. Go and have fun. If that's your goal, is to go and have fun, then it'll everything else will be fine. Like that's it.
Whenever we come back and talk jiu-jitsu again, we need to record the whole show with mouth guards in.
I'm fine with that. I've had worse things in my mouth. But it's against God.
Oh, okay. We're not going to say what they are. Dang.
Dude. Nah, bro. So cool. Well, this was a good show. This was fun.
Yeah. Thanks for hanging out and talking to me, buddy. It's been too long.
Yeah, I could go a long time again, though. You see what I just did there? I'm fine with going. I'm such an asshole. All right, brother. I love you.
All right. You too, buddy. Take care. We're out of here. Thank you all.